If you've been using an iPad for any amount of time, at some point you're going to want to use a stand to prop it up for something. Now, a lot of people go for a keyboard case, something like Apple's Magic Keyboard, but part of the unique appeal of the iPad is that you don't need to have a keyboard all of the time. So, over the years, I've gone through my fair share of stands, and what I want to do today is go over the stands I'm currently using and how I'm using them across my iPads. I'll put a link in the description to everything I talk about, and if you buy from those links, I'll get a small kickback, which will help support me and the channel, and would be greatly appreciated. So let's go ahead and get started. The stand I use most is my desk stand, and with the M4 iPad Pro, I upgraded to a magnetic iPad stand by a company called Lululook. I like the stand a lot because of its flexibility. It both rotates and is height adjustable. Now, if you watched my iPad setup video from last year, you know that my desk setup is centered around a Thunderbolt dock. So the way I mainly use this stand is to lower it down in front of my monitor while it's plugged into the Thunderbolt dock. This has a couple of benefits by using it this way. Number one, the way I use my iPad at a monitor is that the iPad itself will usually have something like Apple Music Classical or YouTube video running, and I'll have Stage Manager on the display where I'm actually doing my work. So this keeps the display, which has to stay on, in front of me doing its thing while I'm working on the other display. Secondly, if I need to use Face ID, this is a really great position for doing that. So I really just have to look down to authenticate quickly and then look back up to continue whatever I'm working on. I also kind of like the clicking sound the stand makes when you rotate it. Now there's a couple of downsides to the stand. First, the magnets are actually really strong. I sometimes wonder if they're maybe too strong. It takes a little more force than I like to pull this off the stand, and it's definitely a two-hand job. One to brace the stand and one to pull the iPad off. Secondly, it doesn't charge. Now, I don't personally need it to charge because again, I have the Thunderbolt dock which provides data and power. When the M4 iPad Pro came out, there was an uptick in these magnetic stands that allow charging through the smart connector. Now I looked at those and I got kind of nervous just because last I knew, Logitech was the only company that Apple had officially blessed with smart connector access. So I worry this is going to be like an MFI situation where I buy this thing and then there's a software update and then this thing no longer charges. And I don't want that with something I'm going to spend more than $100 on. So I stuck with this. When the iPad Pro got redesigned in 2018, the redesign added a bunch of magnets across the back of the iPad. And it's always kind of surprised me that accessory manufacturers haven't taken more advantage of those magnets. So I was pretty excited when I came across this on Reddit the other day, and I bought it immediately. This is the adjustable kickstand cover by a company called TineeOwl. This is exactly what it sounds like. It is a kickstand for the iPad Pro. Now what makes this unique versus similar products that you might find on Amazon is that it is just a back cover. It doesn't cover the side, it's not a folio, it is just the back kickstand. Now for someone that likes and appreciates the iPad for being thin and light, this is critical. This is a stand that's going to be going with me in my iPad bag on days I'm not going to be doing a lot of writing. It works in both orientations, which is key for most of the accessories I try to buy, because if you're working on something like a document or you're reading a long article, the ability to rotate the iPad into portrait is an advantage over your standard laptop, and it's just really nice to have. Now the downside of this stand is that despite it just being a back cover, relative to the iPad, it's actually kind of heavy. And maybe it has to be to properly support the iPad, but it is kind of a bummer that it makes the whole package heavier. So the last stand in my arsenal, so to speak, goes back to the idea of using a case or cover as a stand. And it's likely if you're not going to go with a keyboard cover as a stand, you're going to go with a Folio or something like Apple's Smart Cover. Now I used to buy Apple Smart Covers, and sometimes I still do when Verizon randomly has them on deep discount. But more often these days, I go with a third-party option off of Amazon. Because for the same money, you're getting essentially the same case or better, and I don't really see a huge benefit to sticking with Apple's option here. Now on my 11-inch iPad Pro, I went with the slim trifold stand case by ESR. I bought it in black, which, is basic as it gets, but it works well enough. It's primarily used as a stand versus a cover, per se. It's a great option if all you want to do is watch movies or other content, and it's cost effective because this is less expensive than Apple's option. Now the downside, of course, would be that this only supports being a stand in the landscape orientation and not in portrait. However, there are some options that do give you that capability that are more expensive, but I've used before in the past. I know Pitaka had an option that I used with my 12.9-inch iPad Pro that supported both portrait and landscape, and actually looked pretty nice, in my opinion as well. This one's a bit of an honorable mention. I was gifted this stand a couple years ago when I was still using my M1 iPad Pro as my primary personal device. This is the MagFlot, I don't know how you say that, version 1.0 magnetic stand from a company called ChargeN Pro. I wanted this because of the build quality and aesthetic. It looks great. I just wish it worked with my M4 iPad Pro, otherwise I would have never replaced it. It still gets some use today with that same M1 iPad Pro, which I use for testing beta iPadOS releases. The big downside with this stand is that it's not height adjustable. It just tilts forward and backwards and rotates around a portrait. Now, shortly after I bought this, the company did come out with a height adjustable version. That's how it goes sometimes. So according to their website, the company will be releasing versions of this stand that work with the M4 iPad Pros early next year. I'll keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, if you like this stand, it works, of course, with the older 12.9-inch iPad Pros, but should also work with the 13-inch iPad Air. But again, check their website and Amazon listings to be sure. So that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you if you made it to the end of the video. Make sure to like and subscribe on your way out. Follow me on Threads or Mastodon at SlatePad, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for your time, and take care.